The first person he met was Truman. He just had prayer with him.
Billy Graham's first trip to the White House in 1950 could have been his last. Unfamiliar with the protocol, Reverend Graham answered press questions about that meeting and posed for a photo kneeling on the White House lawn. A few days later, according to the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, a columnist quoted President Truman as saying Billy Graham was a, quote, persona non grata at the White House. Reverend Graham said the situation taught him a great lesson, and it was something Truman and Graham could laugh about years later, and Graham became a familiar face over the decades at the White House, no matter who lived there.
Your father has met with 12 sitting U.S. presidents. How did he have that type of close advisor role to so many presidents across party lines over such a long period of time?
Well, first of all, the politicians are, for the most part, self-serving. They saw that Billy Graham attracted a large crowd, and they wanted to be seen with him. It wasn't so much that my father wanted to be with them. They sought him out.
Especially in times of trouble, such as President Johnson during Vietnam.
He sought my father's counsel, wanted his prayer, wanted his friendship during that time.
He's been called America's pastor. What do you think led people to see him in that way?
Well, because in times of trouble, I think when the World Trade Centers came down, he was asked to come by President Bush to speak to the nation from the Washington Cathedral.
This event can give a message of hope, hope for the present and hope for the future. Yes, there is hope.
When George Bush's father, when we invaded Kuwait before the first Gulf War, he asked my father to come and to pray in Washington before the battle began the next morning.
Franklin Graham says his father was there for those national tragedies and personal difficulties.
All of them, he had a relationship, but it was prayer. He'd pray with them. I think Nixon, he was the closest, and I think when he heard those tapes that there was another side to Nixon, he was so disappointed because he didn't know that Nixon used that kind of language, didn't know that Nixon had that other side to his life. My father, when a person was in trouble, he didn't run away from them. He got even closer to him.
The trouble with the Nixon tapes involved Reverend Graham as well. The two were heard talking about people of the Jewish faith.
Well, I think that first of all, the tapes were, I think, misunderstood. And I don't think there really, in my opinion, there wasn't a controversy. But people wanted to make it, to try to make it sound like a controversy, but I don't think it was. My father was being honest in his opinions with the president and thought they were private.
From private moments to the most public. According to the Billy Graham Library, going back to President Eisenhower's inauguration in 1953, Reverend Graham participated in ceremonies and services for 7 inaugurations for both Democrats and Republicans. In 2007, 3 former presidents, Carter, Bush, and Clinton, were there at Reverend Graham's own big moment, the dedication of his library in Charlotte, which showcases his lifelong ministry in a very public career, one that never included a run at politics.
Well, he was even asked once if he would consider running for president. And my father said that would be taking a step backwards for him because he was an ambassador for the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords.
Reverend Graham met with a total of 12 U.S. presidents, from Truman to Obama, who visited Reverend Graham at his Montreat home in 2010. Even before the 2016 election of Obama's successor, Franklin Graham knew his father's health would prevent him from meeting with another sitting U.S. president.
No, that's not going to happen anymore.
But the continuity that began with the 33rd president continues, in a way, with the 45th.
He knows Donald Trump quite well.
In 2013, Trump attended Reverend Graham's 95th birthday celebration in Asheville.
Of course, we had no clue that Donald Trump would be running for president. I don't think he knew at that time.
I read that your father once said, when speaking about presidents, we sometimes forget the loneliest people in the world are those who are constantly in the public eye. They have spiritual needs just like everyone else. How did that apply to your father, you think?
Well, I think my father, his retreat was when he came home and he got back into the woods. And the cameras were off, and that's where he could relax.
Justin Quisenberry, CBS North Carolina.